How does Google tracks everything you do? There is no doubt that everyone today uses Google. I mean, why shouldn't you? Everything you want to know is on Google. It has become this massive power and information holder of the internet. But Google is not all good. And to quote one of the greatest, with great power comes great responsibility. It was only in January of 2022 that Google was hit with another lawsuit alleging that Google deceived users by collecting their location data even when they believed that the kind of tracking was disabled. And this isn't the only case here. Google has been involved in many more problems with its tracking features. But how does Google do it? Is it just location tracking? Not at all. It's a lot of things, and we actually means a lot. Let's cut them down one by one. Number one here is location. By default, when you make a Google account, you are enrolled in Google's own location tracking feature, which is supposed to enhance your experience using Google Maps. But let's say you never want to use Google Maps, then what? Google would still keep a note of the places you visit and from which device and at what time you went there. Imagine a tracking device in your pocket. That's Google for you. And it does not stop there. Even if you disable location tracking, Google still tracks the location of your device, which is why in January of this year, Google was hit with a lawsuit with the same exact issue which we talked previous. I'm sure if you do not want to Google to know where you are, disable the location tracking, because to some extent it does disable the tracking of your device. We do not know how much though. Maybe it makes it less frequent of grasping your location. Just keep it disabled. Number two here is app. Google has a lot of apps, from basic phone dialers to the Play Stores that everyone uses to download their favorite app. Yes, it's true that some of the Google apps provide great functionality over its competitor, like RCS support in Message app, but it does not make it all good. If you have an Android phone, then you could look up on the every single Google app and you would be amazed to find that location permission is needed for a lot of Google app. Like, why even? This raises another question. Just how much data does Google collect on you? It's how much you allow it. Did we mention YouTube? Option to disable YouTube history. Every single video you watch is also the information Google knows about. That's how they show you the recommended videos based on the videos you watch and the general topics that you might find interesting for you. Like, if you watched one of my videos, it will show you one another choice to watch. Number three is web surfing. About billions of users use Google to surf the web, which makes it more interesting because this basically means that every word you search, Google knows about it. A Google search on Google, because why not? The point is that Google knows what you are up, and sometimes you might have seen it in action when you search for a specific deal on Google, and later that day you start to see ads of it to yourself. Oh, and speaking of ads, did you know Google also has an ad personalization feature that is supposed to give you ads based on your interest? Yeah, just disable that option. Now enough of the scare. How do you stop Google from collecting so much information about you? Here are some solutions for you. Well, there are a few options and below is a list of some. Option number one is using incognito mode from Chrome. If you do not know what is incognito mode, then you can find a link in the I button or a description in the description box below. To some extent, this might be just what you need. Your browser contains critical information about the sites you visit. Incognito mode basically creates a temporary session where information done in that mode is automatically deleted when the browser is closed. Option number two is my favorite, that is VPN. If you do not know what is VPN and how it works and what are the benefits, you can find the video in the I button and the description box below. If you do not want Google and the sites you visited to know who is actually accessing them, use a VPN. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, which basically manipulates the internet thinking that you are someone else. It makes your IP address, your identity on the internet, different by routing all the traffic to the websites from its servers all around the world. Meaning, Google and the sites you visit are gonna think you are someone else. Some great VPN providers that we recommended are ExpressVPN, NordVPN and Surfshark VPN. Sounds simple. That's great because it is, and you can find the links for downloading them in the description box below. And option number 3 is just not use Google. This may seem the simplest option by far to stop Google from snooping on what you do. Stop using Google.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
Then what are the alternatives to Google is Bing, which is Microsoft's search engine. It gets the job done, so it's worth a shot. Now let's get some techie tech. If you use Android and have routing options, you can extend more from your end from Google knowing about you. You could use third-party apps that are open source and blocks Google from knowing about you. The catch is that they work only if you have root permissions, because Google has locked down Android because they do not want the normal users to do it. Again, we are talking a lot of taggy here. Another way to go would be custom ROM. They are basically your phone operating systems. Since Android is open source, a good developer can fork Android and create his version of Android. And some developers have already done this to push Google out as much as possible. Lineage OS is good example of this. Is super cool because if you are into this nerdy stuff, you could totally achieve this and prevent Google from knowing anything about it. But if you do not have any knowledge about it, just use the other options I mentioned earlier. You get the job done and you do not require a lot of. All in all, the biggest tech giant knows a lot about it, but you can control it to some extent or completely get rid of their services. Whether it makes to feel you good or not, that's it for today my folks. Find you in the next video. Thank you.